live. Hi. Hi, guys. This is Surviving to Thriving, Organizing Time as a Mom. I'm not a mom, but I do have a mom with me right now, and she did a pretty good job, so I'm going to ask her about her secrets. This is, this is Susan Evans, my mom. I'm Rachel, your host. Let's get into it. Okay, so, okay. I would ask you to introduce yourself a little bit. How long
Sure.
have you been a mom? How long have you been married? How long have you known what you were talking about relating to this subject?
Okay, so I've been married for 25 years, and I have homeschooled all the way through. I've had 4 kids, and so from the very beginning, when I had babies, I knew that I wanted to be teaching them. Now, I was a school teacher before I had kids, so it was a natural extension of who I was already to create learning environments for my kids and to help them to learn to thrive and be excited about learning and stuff like that.
All right, good, good. Now, one of the first things that I see when I look up like motherhood on YouTube and so on is a lot of women struggling with um, self care, and a lot of people who aren't mothers going like, "Oh well, how are you like still like being yourself?" And because motherhood takes a lot out of you. So how does how do you take time for self care? Because that's really going to reflect on the home. I think if you're
Depleted all the time.
yeah, if you're depleted all the time, that's going to reflect in your home. It's going to be chaos, and it's not going to feel like a calm oasis that your husband can come home to. So, what's the first thing that you like to that comes to your mind when you think of that?
Self care.
Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of things about self care. One of them is getting proper amount of rest. And this is especially hard if you're nursing a baby. But what my mom always told me is to sleep when the baby sleeps. So even if you are getting interrupted sleep at night because of nursing a baby, you can still during the day when the baby goes down for a nap, especially if you just have one baby at the beginning, you can lie down and take a nap during that time. And um, and then when I had all four were ages 5 and under, so I had a lot of young kids all at the same time, and that is very fatiguing on a mom, especially if they are nursing. So getting proper rest is number one. Don't do chores or anything when the babies are sleeping or the toddlers are sleeping. And preschoolers can also have some time after lunch that's silent, that they can be on their beds looking at toddler books or preschool books, or quietly doing something so that the mother can lie down right after lunch and get the proper rest that she needs. Because I felt so refreshed after 20 minutes, even if it was just, even if I didn't sleep, I felt really recharged and re-energized for the afternoon. So I was able to get a lot more accomplished, and also I was able to have more energy for my husband and more energy for creative things. So I had like an hour to an hour and a half after lunch every day that I had silent time, that the babies and toddlers would sleep and the young kids would do whatever. And then I kept that going all the way. So with homeschooling, if they didn't finish like their math or something else, science or whatever, or they weren't finished writing their writing assignment, then they could do that. It was like a study hall after lunch. And so that quiet oasis really helps. Especially, I had 3 boys and a girl, so you can imagine in a lot of homes with young kids, there's noise, and so you need um, what I call it's what I call noise pollution, and it's depleting if you don't have silence in your life at some point. And so that's why I built it into the day as a routine. And so because they had that, the kids had that every single day, they came to expect it. They were trained. They had to stay on their bed. I mean, unless they had to go to the bathroom, they could go to the bathroom and come back. But basically, they stayed on their bed that during that time.
Yeah, yeah. I remember every single day without fail, it would be a quiet time after lunch. And even after, like, because I was the youngest, even after I was like long past the point of like taking naps, I was still like down there for the hour and a half doing like in silence. And I actually think that benefited me a lot more than I thought when I was that age. Of course, when you're that age, you're just like, I want to be like running around playing and stuff. But the silence actually taught me how to think. Because when there's noise around you all the time, it's easy to just like, you just turn your brain off and you're just doing what's in front of you. But when there's silence, there's no getting away from your thoughts. There's no getting away from your thoughts. And so, growing up, I was like for an hour and a half every day, I was alone with my thoughts. And I wasn't always unoccupied. Sometimes I would like be reading a book, but oftentimes I would just be sitting there and like listening to the air conditioning through the vents and like just thinking. And it taught me how to think. And I think that made me who I am today.
The writer, the creative writer that you are, you have such a huge imagination. And maybe your thought life was developed through that. I don't know.
Maybe. Anyway, it's not just a benefit to the mother, it's a benefit to the child, and I'm evidence of that. So.
And okay, so we're talking about self-care. So having silence during the day and resting, like actually lying down, even if you don't go to sleep, and not staying up so late. Because I know a lot of moms that stay up super late because they want to have time to themselves, but then they don't have, because the baby or something or the toddler wakes up early in the morning, and then you don't actually have enough rest for, rapid eye movement, REM sleep, and stuff like that, the deeper sleep. So that's one thing. Also, being healthy, like exercising helps. If you exercise with your kids, it's even more helpful. I remember for a couple years we had a trampoline. Believe it or not.
Hi, Amira. Welcome.
So the trampoline, we use that for like learning math facts. We jumped, the kids jumped up and down, and it was nice and solid. So even an adult could jump up and down on it. What else? I don't know. We would walk around or dance to praise music, or I don't know. We did different things for me to be able to stay in shape, and also did Zumba. Once a week I did Zumba, and it helped to keep me in shape. It really does help you not to feel sluggish for self-care, and for getting back to your pre-pregnancy weight. Nursing babies helps to do that as well. And then so eating right, obviously, resting, and drinking water and stuff like that, and exercising. Those are just basics, but we already know about those.
We went on a lot of bike rides. Like my mom would be walking and the rest of us would be on bikes, just slowly like pedaling around her. And that's a good thing for mental health too. Going on walks is so nice, especially with like the fresh air, and it's like the birds chirping and the sun is shining and it's shining on your face and you just feel alive. And I think I would go insane without it. So.
Oh, I do want to say one more thing about self-care, and it's really, it has to do with creativity. Because if a woman is able to express creativity, she feels better about life. Like it's more like the mental health section of life. So find out things that you enjoy as a mom. One of the things is like going outside, and the kids can play outside, and then you can listen to the birds and like nature. So that's a refreshing thing for a mom while the kids are playing in an area that's fenced in and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then there's creativity like painting or this or that. Also, your dad, I don't know if you remember this, but he sometimes would take all of you kids and go, and then I would have a whole day or several hours to myself. And because everything was completely silent, I would be able to use that time to plan or to write, because I loved writing, like as creativity. And I liked also doing home interior decorating and stuff. That to me was exciting. And planning you guys' day and you guys' like schooling and different themed things that I would invent and stuff. That was fun for me. So being a mom was actually like, I said to a mom that would visit a lot with her kids, I said, I want to be the best professional mom, like professional meaning, like I want to be good at what I do. And so she was like, oh, I never thought of, being a professional mom. Because these are all women who, a lot of them had jobs and careers before they had kids. And so they think of themselves as stay-at-home mom. Well, we are a stay-at-home mom, but let's thrive. Let's, get creative. Let's have the kids involved in baking bread and so it was fun for me, having the kids grow up, and it was a joy. So it felt like those were all my hobbies,
Mm-hmm.
my doing the home things were my hobbies. So I would thrive off all that. And organizing, I've always loved organizing. I have organizing products in my store, susanevans.org.
Always be plugging.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's true though. People wanted a tour of my home because they could see that I had everything in organized way and that I always had energy. And so they would always ask me, and I would give them a tour, and it would take at least an hour, maybe 2 hours, where I would show them everything, and I would answer their questions and stuff. So that's why I did the 2-hour video tour of my home and how we organized everything, and organizing for a fun homeschool, which is in my e-store.
Yeah, we've since moved, but it's still the same principles. Even though, I mean, when we moved to our new house, it was much different because we no longer had young kids in the house, so it was much more of a like, this is an adult sphere where there can be sharp corners, and we don't have to worry about that. But anyway, yeah, self-care is a big thing. Other things that are commonly talked about in the wifery sphere is like, well, a lot of times when you have kids, I mean, this is what I've heard. I don't have kids, but what I've heard is when you have kids, a lot of the times the marriage goes to the back burner, and like a lot of aspects of the relationship between husband and wife get like pushed
out of order.
Yeah, they get pushed to the side or completely canceled, even when it's actually super important that husband and wife are on the same page and actually like enjoying each other's presence, and not letting the children like the children are a big deal, but how do you prioritize the marriage and the marriage's health? So what do you think?
Yes. Okay. So date nights were one of those things that even if you don't have money, there are ways to get around hiring a babysitter. If all of your kids are young and you need a babysitter, what we did, one of the clever things that we did, it's not like I invented this, is that a coworker of my husband's, they had a child, a baby the same age as my oldest son. And so they would babysit my baby once a week on a Friday night. The next week, I would watch their kids. So their baby, plus they had two other kids. Anyway, so we ended up doing more work by watching their kids, but then we got to go out every 2 weeks to go on a date, and it was free babysitting, and it was parents, and then so that was just one idea that you can do. You could trade off with another family, and then the kids can play together and stuff and have friendships. Hey Susan, I love your videos. Oh, thank you. That's great, Andrew. So anyways, marriage is really important, and I always prioritized my husband first before the kids, and I did that by spending some one-on-one time with him. I would also like on date nights, when the kids were older and there was somebody that was old enough for babysitting legally from our own kids, then that was a lot easier, and we could go out even once a week, and we could go like on a hike and take a picnic, and it doesn't even have to cost anything. So date nights don't have to be eating out. It's fun to eat out, but if you are on a budget, you can just have a picnic, go on like I would research online different things happening in this area. We live in Spokane, Washington, so I would look up in this area, and there were some like a jazz night. So we would go downtown, and we would join this jazz thing, and it was fun. You didn't know about this, but
I did.
We would dance to this little jazz thing, and your dad doesn't like dancing, but he'll do it once in a while. But anyway, it was fun. It was really fun, and also we would try once a year to go on a weekend away for 2 nights, and that way you have one full day without kids, so you can remember what it was like, to just focus on each other rather than have your attention divided. And that was really helpful if you have grandparents, because you're basically grandma, Mimi, either set of grandparents would watch you guys. So we did that also because I was a homeschool speaker, and my husband would travel with me when we were on conferences. Then those times also, my parents would watch the kids, and then we would have time. Well, we didn't really have time as a couple that much because we were working, but it was without kids, so it was a completely different thing. And then we were in a hotel, and a lot of times, they would fly us out. They paid for me to speak. They paid for the table. They paid for our hotel and everything. So it was like a sort of a weekend away, not really.
Yeah, and on the same note of like the fact that mom prioritized her marriage, I didn't realize as like the child. I'm gonna bring this up a lot as like the perspective from the child's perspective, because I think this is very useful and it can help like lend some credibility to all of this. But yeah, I didn't notice mom prioritizing the marriage. Like I still felt like I was living my life and enjoying my life, and I felt like I was being paid attention to. And yeah, it didn't ever feel like oh, mom and dad are always over here and I'm never allowed to talk to them, sort of deal. So
yeah, and the other thing is I put the kids to bed at a reasonable hour, and as they got older, they would say, "Oh, we're not tired," or whatever, and that was fine with me. Now, because I only had one daughter, it was harder for her than, although you were younger, so you needed more sleep. But the boys, we allowed them to talk and before they fell asleep or whatever, so that so that we could spend time together as a husband and wife. So I would put the kids to bed like at 8 when they were really little. And then like the baby, I would put the baby down on, and the toddlers and the preschoolers at 8. And that is correct. I mean, that's how normal people do it. But as they grew up or whatever, like at age, 7, 8, 9 or whatever, I would have 9 o'clock. And you guys got up as early as you wanted because you were doing math first thing, but I made sure to have time every night with your dad. And the two of us, actually, a lot of times we were not watching TV. We would sit and we would talk about God, or we would talk about things, or I don't know. There were lots of other things that we did. Back then we had more energy. But I mean, and now, I don't know, things are different. It's a different decade of life, but even then, we were able to spend time together, every single day. Like he would catch up on what had gone on with the kids that day or whatever. And so weekends away, once a year, maybe, or twice a year, depending on if I had conferences. And then evenings, and then date nights. So those are some of the things. And then plus, whatever he wanted prioritized, I would rearrange my day and prioritize those things. So if he wanted, something to be washed or whatever, because he wanted to wear it at a specific time or whatever, so then I would do a laundry of that kind, or, so prioritize that. I would rearrange so that he would feel important, because he is, and we were always on the same page about raising the kids too. That's one thing we did really well, I thought, growing up. I mean, having you guys grow up, we were on the same page and supported each other. So like if he, or if I was disciplining or he was disciplining, we were supportive of each other, but we were always on the same page. We wanted their hearts, and we were just focusing on very specific things like obedience and self-control, and honesty. So we would focus on those things, and then we're pretty lenient on almost everything else. I mean, we would say yes to just about anything, unless it was, something that was injurious or whatever. So a lot of parents thought we were lenient, but then we were really strict about some things, like obedience, to not have a disobedient,
Also,
happening.
There were punishments if one child hit another child. It's not like there was chaos.
Yeah, no, it wasn't really lenient. I don't know. I'm just saying, compared to how I grew up. How I grew up.
I guess it was like more like grace-based parenting, of like there's a lot of forgiveness involved, and there's a lot of like understanding where the child is coming from, why the child did that. So survival of the fittest, let the children battle. Yes, that is
no.
That's a good point if you're living in like the Viking era. But this is 2023. Okay, we got to make sure that all of your children survive. Okay, that's like the number, like.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, the honesty thing is, I always said to the kids that if anything happens and you do something wrong, if you come to me and confess it, then you basically get off scot-free. So no matter what, like we'd come home to a babysitter. Oh, we also had a babysitter after we didn't have. There was like a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old that was a 1 in 10 kids or something, 9 kids.
Yeah, there was a huge family that occasionally they sent over 1 or 2 of their daughters, like the oldest.
It was 1, yeah.
Yeah, and she would babysit us.
Yeah, and then we did that once a week. And because it was like we paid just $5 an hour because it was a 12-year-old, and so because she was so cheap, we And at that point, we could afford that, I think, at that point.
And yeah,
when the kids were a little bit older.
They were family friends.
Yeah.
Like
And
it wasn't
make
just
dinner.
Yeah, it wasn't just a random 12-year-old making dinner and watching 4 children.
But anyway, back to so when we got home, the kids would come up to me if anything happened, and they would confess what had happened. If something was broken, or if they did something wrong and they hit somebody, they confessed it, because if they confessed it and said the truth, then they wouldn't get into trouble.
Yeah, I never had any of those moments where I was like trying to hide what I had done and like living in like, I hope they never find out, or like knowing that they will find out eventually, but keeping my mouth shut. I never did that, because why would I live in like that terror? That sounds terrible. I would go and confess it, and then I never had any fear. Like, if it was something bad, I would get disciplined for it, but if I had confessed it and was honest about what happened, it would never be as bad of a punishment as normal if I had just ran away and hid, So
like shoving your math behind your bed that you didn't want to do your math.
Oh my gosh. Years later, I uncovered math homework. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was still a child. I was still a child at that point, but it was like math from when I was like 6. And I was like 9 at the time. And I was like, there's just crumpled up math homework that I never did. And so I went ahead and I did the homework and I turned it in. Because I was like, well, I mean,
or the beads that you clipped off.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh. Okay, these are two completely different stories, but I think it's worth the tangent. We used to have a beaded doorway, like where there's like a long chain of beads, but there's like many of them, and you like go through the doorway. Anyway, so I was running with scissors, and it was the first time I had ever really run with scissors, and I was thinking, why do people ever say don't run with scissors? And so I decided to try it out, try running with scissors. And then I ended up cutting the beads, and one of the things just fell, and it just ruined the entire thing. And I was here sitting like, that's why they don't run with scissors, because I ruined it. But then I was so upset. I was so sad because I loved that. That beaded doorway.
And I heard her crying, Mom! And I'm like, what's the matter? Because she was like 6 years old or something.
Yeah, I was around.
And I'm 6. Like, are you okay? I did something. Come look. And she confessed it right away.
Yeah,
like she had just done it.
Yeah, that was.
So that's what I'm saying, is that because if they see that they're in trouble, oh dear. And I actually, this is how God acts with us, that if we confess our sins, He is faithful and just and forgives us our sins and cleanses us. There is grace with God. If you admit that you're wrong, okay, I was wrong about this. I was wrong. I would never do it. If I could do it over again, I wouldn't do it. Well, that's what you want to train them to be. So why discipline them if they're already sorry? So to me, I know, I don't know, but it was helpful to do that. So that's why.
I think this calls back to something that was mentioned a little while ago with like getting up as early as we wanted to, but starting on our math on our own. This is something that pertains to homeschooling, really, but not only homeschooling. A lot of like setting schedules and stuff and training children to do stuff on their own. I would like to know the secrets, because I want to be a mother at some point in the future, so I kind of want to know this, and I'm probably going to return to this video in like 5 years, and I'm going to comment on this video going like, I did come back in 5 years. But anyway, a lot of people's kids are not very well trained. They always need to be with their parents. Like the parents always have to be watching them to make sure they don't do something wrong. And a lot of it, watching it, made me go like, I even really want to be a mother? Like this seems like these children are just all over the place. Is this just an inevitability? But
You guys weren't like that.
Yeah,
Because I trained you.
I heard that when I was really young, and when my brothers were all really young, I've heard stories of people coming up and going like, these children are so well behaved. Like, how are they so well behaved? And I think a lot of it is that like rigorous discipline, but not. It was graceful discipline. Like I never felt unloved, and yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I never felt unloved. Just so you know, Mom.
Good. I mean, we just did the best we could. But we did used to play games to teach the kids how to obey. And so, like, I would have the kids run around and say, go. And they would run every which direction. And then I would say, stop. And then they immediately stopped. If they immediately stopped, I would give them an M&M. And if they didn't immediately stop, they didn't get an M&M. And so then, okay, ready, go, run, stop. And I would not say it in a loud voice because I had to hear stop. And this is something that I say in another workshop here on YouTube. I have a early childhood routines thing for early childhood that I tell this story because it was so impressive to my husband's boss because they were running down to the lake or the river.
The children were running.
The children were running.
Yeah, not the boss.
The boss is not running. But they were going down, and then the kids, and they were so little, they were like 3 and 5, and then one I was holding or whatever. And your dad all just said, kids, stop. And they immediately stopped, and it was just like phenomenal. Like the boss was just like, wow, that's impressive. I mean, but we always followed through, and it is exhausting at first. But if you really train them when they're really little, then you reap the result of harvest of righteousness and peace when they're older. Plus you deal with them as human beings. You listen to them and talk to them like a real human being, not as a tiny kid that doesn't know anything. I always treated the kids as intelligent from really, really young. And so then they felt responsible.
And you always kept your promises. And whatever you said would always happen. Like,
I didn't say the word promise, but I would say,
yeah.
If you do this, then we will do this, and I always follow through.
Yeah, if you're going to say something like that, always be prepared to follow through with it. Empty threats are terrible for like the development of us. Like I imagine that like if a child is growing up and the parents are always just saying like, do this or else you won't get any dinner tonight. And then if you don't do it, then you still get dinner, like it breeds a sense of like the child doesn't respect the words.
Yeah, they don't trust the word.
The words don't have any weight.
That has to matter. Like I wouldn't say the thing about dinner, but I would say like we don't get to go to the park if you continue acting this way and they continue acting this way, then you don't go to the park. That's final. So I would always, if I had a thing that I put on the end of something, then then it would always have to be. So I did not actually, you know what one of my tricks was?
What was one of your tricks?
because sometimes I was really tired. If I knew I couldn't follow through, I didn't give the command. Because I didn't want to have the command given and not be able to follow through.
Do you have an example? You might not have
There were a whole lot of times that I was tired, but if you give a command of something, and then but I always had to follow through. If there was a command, there was always an expectation for it to be completed, and that's what I loved about it. Was so wonderful because when you were older, like, I mean, for older I mean 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, not tiny, but even as tiny toddlers, you would obey right away. But I would give a command, and I would turn, and I would know that it would be completed, and it always was. So it was odd later when you were like a lot older. Well, I mean, if you were in like a live game online or something like that, it's different because, I mean, when you were little, it wasn't like that. You could stop what you were doing, and anyway. But immediate obedience was something that was a joy, and I feel like you knew that Dad and I loved it, and so you did it. I feel like that's how it is with God too. It's like if you know that God is pleased, like, it makes you want to do it more, and it gives you joy to delight your father or delight, your mother, as the case may be. And because we loved you so much and you knew it, that helped too, because a lot of parents discipline in anger, and that's something that your dad and I determined not to do, and that we would I don't know, hand the other person over, like, so that the person that wasn't involved, that didn't have anything, or whatever, I don't know, but we didn't want it to ever be that that the kids felt that they weren't loved because the parent was angry, like, why, I don't know, anyway.
In fact, I actually got special treatment because I was the youngest and I was the only daughter. So I got special treatment. My dad took me out to get ice cream all the time, and it was great. Anyway.
Well, you got special treatment in some ways as a girl, but the boys got special treatment in that they got sports and a whole bunch of other things.
Hi, Ruth. There was yeah, I do remember the boys got like the whole
like Cub Scouts.
And, okay. They had the whole smattering of sports. They had Cub Scouts. They had basketball, soccer, football, like robotics club, and
so see, it's even.
It's even because I never got to do any of those things, and we had planned on me doing like gymnastics or something girly relating to that, but that couldn't actually end up happening because I ended up getting a back surgery. But anyway, I still felt loved as a child, even if I never got to play any sports. And I didn't ever like express the desire to play sports. I don't know. Like, I never like found an interest in it. And so
that's good. You never told me about that.
Thanks. I am charming, Andrew. That's a great point. That's a great point.
And thank you, Ruth. Nice to be. It's wonderful to see y'all live stream. Yay.
It is. Anyway.
I've done live streams on Facebook a whole bunch, but for some reason I didn't do live streams on here. So I think I'm going to be doing more live streams on YouTube because it's just good.
Okay, back to the whole thing. All of this you're talking about training children sounds exhausting. But
it's not as bad as it sounds.
Okay, even if
they all are little you. They're a little mini me. They're yours. They're yours, so they're cute.
Anyway, now that you've got the children handled, children crossed off the list. You got it down. You've got the children.
It's never like that. It's never like that.
But
they keep you on your toes, and you have to keep inventing things to figure out like what to do in a situation you've never been in before, and you just make stuff up.
Yeah,
that's the truth.
Yeah, growing up is the realization that your parents were just making it up as they went along and were just as panicked as you were.
Were you panicked?
I mean, whenever there was a problem.
Panicked. I don't think I was panicked.
Anyway, as I was saying, it like the children are a big deal, but oftentimes the no, I don't have Prince Harry's book. That's a whole other can of worms. Anyway, the what was I saying? Yes, the rest of the house. How do you handle the rest of the house and like managing it, making sure there's dinner on the table, cleaning schedules? Because, yeah, those in and of themselves can take up all your time.
Right.
So how do you handle like while the children are running around? What do you do?
So yeah, this interview is about time management for moms. So we've talked about
we've gotten to the meat and potatoes of this.
Self-care, marriage, and training of children. Those are the three main categories, but there's also the managing of the home. And so you have to set up certain habits, because when you have habits, then it's less work and it's less draining for you. So one of the habits that I had was to do a load of laundry every morning. So I would, because I have 4 kids, so there's 6 of us as a family. I suppose if you have fewer, if there's only 1 or 2 kids, then you might not need to do one every day. I also like to have the weekends off because I wanted to spend time with my husband. That's another, prioritizing the husband is I wouldn't be planning stuff on a Saturday or a Sunday, in general, unless it was a conference or something, something that had to be scheduled on a Saturday. But so laundry, I just did one every day. And then meal planning, that's something that I did once a week, and I would get the groceries for the week, and then I would plan the dinners each night. And then also I used a crock pot in the morning because I had a lot more energy in the morning than I did at night. So it was so helpful to chop the vegetables and do everything and put everything in the crock pot so that it was ready to go. It was basically ready to serve. And that's actually another tip of it as a mom. If you are doing something in the evening, like let's say once a week I had Zumba, if I was gonna leave, like when the kids were older, and if I was gonna leave before and not be there for dinner, to have the dinner completely ready and the table set, then they could have dinner whenever my husband came home, they could eat. You know what I'm saying? So I still do that to this day if I'm not going to be home or whatever. And also you train your kids for meal planning. You train your kids how to cook. And I did this with all my boys in Cub Scouts. They had different things, different badges that they could earn for different things for cooking and all kinds of leather work and all woodworking and all that.
That's going to be very helpful making belts to be disciplined with.
No, okay, we never use belt for discipline. Okay,
I'm joking.
Anyways, no, but as one of the things that I did with Rachel as a girl, because she wanted to learn how to manage the home and how to run the home and meal planning and all cooking, baking, all that kind of thing. So I spent an intensive year on just doing that, and that was something that she wanted to do. And I wish that I had more. Well, my mom did teach me how to cook basic foods and stuff like that, but I didn't. I grew up in Guatemala, and I don't know, but I didn't have as much experience with cooking as Rachel does right now, because she basically, if you can hand off some of the things that that you do as a mom. You get more energy if someone is in charge of dinner. Like my third son likes to make tacos, and so if we have a taco night, then he's the one doing that. My second son we used to make spaghetti. Spaghetti. No, not those. Spaghetti. With ground beef or whatever, and so he would do that. And so, anyways, but my daughter can make all kinds of things in a much
you name it, I make it.
Greater level of skill because she did a lot more. So by the time that she gets married and she cooks for her own family, she's going to have so much more experience, so that she starts at a level of skill that is higher than if she hadn't done that. So as a homeschool mom, or just as a mom in general, don't feel bad to pass off some of your skills in running the home, in cooking, doing laundry. I had my kids, even as toddlers, folding stuff coming out of the laundry, or I would, if you were just a baby, I would have you in your little carrier and you would watch me working. So you would see a hardworking mother, and then that set an example for you, because all four of you were very high, hardworking kids. It's true. I mean, even Brian with a dean's list and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, we were all hard workers.
Yeah.
And it cultivated an environment of hard workers. I think as you keep having more kids, the older kids are an example to the younger kids of how things are done. Because, I'm pretty sure, I would be willing to bet that a lot of my behaviors that I learned that I did when I was younger, I learned from my older brothers. So I think it actually might get easier with more kids.
It does, actually, yes. And they play together. So
they occupy themselves.
Well, that was another thing that I didn't mention, is the fact that I had a sectioned off area that was safe, that was a gated area, and that I would take out different things like Duplo Legos or blocks or sand. Like I would give you, yes, an indoor sandbox. Yes, we had the indoor sandbox. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that.
Anyway, but it was so fun. It was open ended. You could play for hours or whatever. Although I would change the activity around or whatever, but I would have time. Like I would have you guys. You were listening to either scripture on audio, or you would listen to different languages, or Spanish, or all kinds of things, like question and answer, like a catechism kind of thing. That was a questions and answers from scripture, for example. And so you would be listening to something, or classical music, or whatever it is. I had that in the background. And so then they would do an open-ended thing, and they would play together. You guys played together really well. You didn't fight hardly ever. I'm talking about all the years that you were, that we had to baby-proof the house. Like, I'm talking about young. And so whenever at the beginning of the day, I would spend one-on-one time with the kids. Like, let's say they're all tiny. Let's say they're all preschool or babies and toddlers. I would teach them a Bible story for 5 or 10 minutes, and they were very interested. And then I would do colors and numbers and letters and things like that. So they had really, really intensive, good, really juicy learning time. And then, yeah, because you were very, very interested. I mean, it was always very exciting. Like, you would run, to sit down all around me. It was really cute, actually. It's so fun to have kids. It really is. I mean, you as a mom, and surrounded by all your kids sitting their little bodies on top of you, and yeah, and then you're teaching them something that matters, and they ask such cute questions that are like really deep and really good questions, because they ask whatever, and things that you would have never thought. And so, anyways, so then after that, I would have an open-ended activity, and then it was in a safe environment, and so you would play together, and I could go and do Bible study, and study and spend time just with me and the Lord, and and I could hear. I was within earshot, and I could hear, and then after about half an hour or however long, I would go and then I would change the activity or do more one-on-one time or whatever. But that helped a lot because I had time to be able to spend, I did women's Bible studies for years, and
I didn't know that.
Sometimes it was like an hour a day of homework, to be honest. And I did an Old Testament class and a New Testament class, and I turned in papers for all those classes.
I had no idea.
And I also, your grandpa, who was, he was a Greek and New Testament theology. My dad was a seminary professor, so he taught me biblical Greek. You were, I think, 4 years old or 5 years old, and so I would be doing Greek or whatever while you guys were doing open-ended activity. So you were constantly learning, growing, being creative in what you were creating, whether with sand or there were all kinds of building sets that we had, like Connects and there's all kinds of things, the Legos and different building sets. So anyway, so I had your time be productive, so you felt good about your life, like you had a lot that you had accomplished each day. We had different themed topics because we did unit studies. So after you did math, we did unit studies during the day together. And so we developed a lot of camaraderie as a family and a lot of unity as a family. We had very deep conversations about all kinds of topics because of it. And so I have loved our, your upbringing, and, I tried to create the ideal environment, and I tried as best as I could,
I liked my upbringing too. It was a great upbringing.
Yeah, I thought she was a good person to interview me because she really liked it and she was asking me, one of the years when we were doing psychology for high school and we were also doing early childhood, she was asking me what types of things that I did with her because she didn't remember when she was really little, what types of things that we did because, when you like the way that you turned out or whatever, it's helpful to know how that was done.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you have to start from scratch.
Yeah, I don't want to have to do that. After all the work that she did, I don't think I have the resilience for that. So, I'm just going to copy what she did and just,
Anyways, so you want to wrap it up then?
Yeah. So that was really interesting. There's more talks to come. Stay tuned. Okay. There's more of us together and various subjects. You don't even know. Anyway, that's going to be all from us, all from my mom and me today. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day.
All right. Bye.